Joining me now is Zack Valdez, U.S. Department of Energy, Chief of Staff, Office of Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chains. Great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we sat here pretty well exactly a year ago, so it's going to be interesting to get an update on what you've been doing and the progress that's being made. So how would you characterize the general progress in basically identifying the gaps and opportunities in the energy supply chain?
Yeah, no, we've really done a lot in terms of thinking about from an analytical perspective where we stand, because I think we came into this realizing that we were pushing uphill in terms of clean energy. And so what we wanted to do was build an analytical backbone to really identify where was the technologies and within those technologies, where at individual nodes of those supply chains should we invest strategically. So we've been building out some of that analytical backbone to really identify what those key areas are that we in the United States should invest in domestically, as well as partnering with other countries to understand where should we allow friendly countries to sort of adopt and adapt some of their own supply chains and bring that value here. So that's been key. The other part is really working with our national labs to identify where we are in a technology phase. So going from research and development to what we now call D&D, demonstration and deployment, to look at the commercialization of these technologies. Because to be honest, this is the first of its kind at DOE. We're working in what we call industrial strategy, and we're trying to identify how we work with industry and how to do that effectively. So some of those gaps and really working hand in hand in partnerships with industry is where we're really hoping that we can continue that opportunity moving forward.
As of last year, you told us there was $6 billion available to be released. As of last May, about $2.8 billion of that had been dispersed. So what's the latest number and what kinds of projects are we looking at?
Yeah, so I'm glad you bring that up. That battery and critical material program was the first to ever get funding out of the door for bipartisan infrastructure law at Department of Energy. So we were really focusing on how do we bring value to the community and really think about, once again, how do we do that public-private partnership? Because what we want to do is have this industry-led but government-enabled. So where's industry going and how can we transition $1 into $10 for the economy? So we invested and we got somewhere around the scope of, I think, $2 billion out the door. And we actually have a little bit around closer to $4 billion left in this round two. We're looking at this in terms of, yes, we want to get that money out there. We want to help the industry, but we also want to be good stewards of taxpayer money. So we are focusing on this round two. We're asking for good projects. We're always oversubscribed, but we're being very critical, going back to that analytical backbone to identify what are the key areas, what are the key supply chain. Is it processing? Is it refining? Is it battery packs? Is it nickel? Is it cobalt? Is it lithium? And so how do we do that? And to be honest with you, if we don't go into this with a thought that, yes, we'd love to spend it, but if there's money left over, we will roll that back into another program. And I think that's one of the ways that we're trying to be thoughtful about how we're spending that funding.
And can you flesh out the vetting process and also how important it is that there's a cost-sharing aspect? You're not just going to disperse money with when they don't have skin in the game, these various projects.
Yeah, and I mean, it really goes back to how do we work well with industry and adopt some of the best practice that's already going out there. Because one of the things that we do is 50% cost share for most of our grants. And what we're trying to identify is how do we make sure that they have just as much skin, if not more, in the game. So if we're giving out $50 million and they want to put in $200 million, that means that they are ready to go, shovel ready. They've got financing, they've got permitting, they've done a lot of the work on their end to move things forward. And so it really helps us not only know that the industry is behind them, but also that they are behind themselves. And so that's part of it. I think the other part is we want to see more engagement through the Justice 40 initiative, looking at environmental justice. So it's not only putting money on the table, but there's also a vetting that has to go on in the community and the places that they need to build that social sort of contract with the areas and regions that they're going.
And hire a good amount of local people, right?
Absolutely. So workforce is another thing that when we think about how are we vetting these companies, we really want to understand how are you engaging with the local community colleges or colleges to identify the technical workforce, or just supporting them through training and apprenticeship programs. So that's something that we weave into our programs as well as have other programs for.
Now you talked about progress and talks with other countries in terms of partnerships, Japan, Australia, maybe Canada's on that list, France. How's that coming along?
Great. We were at PDAC in Australia last year. really trying to build awareness. I think the hardest part of what we're trying to do is because we're so new. We've only been around for a little over 2 years, is let other country knows here's the funding that you could apply for if you bring your technology here, if you bring your processing here, because we know we don't have as maybe a well-developed mining operation as Australia. But at what point do we bring some of that resource to support the value that we're trying to create in the clean energy technologies, whether that's EVs or battery magnets, et cetera. And so I think it's working directly not only with the public entities in those countries, but also with the industry to identify what is the best areas and going back to that analytical backbone to say, hey, Canada, you're doing this really well, and you're right across the border. Let's bring that over here and increase the value of that.
Zack, last question for you, two parts. So what have been the most encouraging developments as you see them and your department sees them the last year? And what are some of the key challenges that remain?
I've been encouraged by how quickly we've been able to ramp up. We've got a great team that's really focused in on not only how do we work with industry, but how do we make sure that communities are involved and thinking about what does the long-term sustainability look like. But that's also a challenge because a lot of our funding is through this bipartisan infrastructure law and Inflation Reduction Act funding. So once these funding is spent, we're looking at what does sustainability look like, because we've inserted over $6 billion. In fact, our office has received up to $20 billion to support between grants and tax credits, the clean energy transition. And so when we think about, especially from a critical mineral lens, what does that look like after this funding? What is the ceilings and the floors of the programs that we need to do to invest to continue moving forward in this space? And so it's both a challenge but an opportunity that I think going back to sort of industry-led and government-enabled, I hope we can continue this partnership.
Well, thanks for the update.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Maybe we'll do it again next year.
Sounds great.
Or before. All right, thank you, Zack. Zack Valdez, U.S. Department of Energy.